So yesterday, the United States government put out a report that said that there would be more details coming, but they were kind of giving some indication of how the chargers would be built across the United States in order to support the electric vehicle business going forward. And what were they forced to do? They were forced to work with Tesla. They were forced to mention Tesla in the press release. Why? Because, of course, Tesla has the only really significant number of superchargers or chargers out in the real world that are working most of the time. There was all kinds of rules and regulations with regard to how these are going to be built out in the future. And one of those was reliability. If you'd like to know more about the details of the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, and how it impacts these chargers and how they're going to be built, I recommend that you go over and check out what Dylan Loomis had to say on his channel yesterday with regard to this, because he got more into the weeds, and why repeat what he's already done. So let's now, though, take a look at the financial impact. That's what I'm way more interested in, as well as the out-of-the-box thinking that we know that the Elon Musk team, the Tesla folks, are doing with regard to this entire supercharger network plan and how it's going to benefit Tesla in ways that you may not have even thought of. So let's just start out with where we are today. Right now, we have 1,770 locations just in the United States, and about 4,300 worldwide locations. Out of all of these locations, there are now about 44,000 actual stalls that are operating daily. And this is all expected to double by the end of 2024. That was confirmed by multiple sources, but it's been what they've been talking about for a long time. They make most of these stalls in the Buffalo plant. I'm not sure whether there might be a separate plant in China. Help me out in the comments below if you know. I think there might be a second plant in China for China and for Europe, but I could be completely wrong about that. In any case, they have plenty of capacity apparently to get this done. Biggest problem probably is finding locations and then getting permitting and all the rest. But by the end of next year, roughly, they're going to have 100,000 of these stations, or not stations, 100,000 locations of the pumps themselves. Typically, Tesla tends to have 10 or more of these pumps in every single location. Pumps, what should we call them? Charging nodules. Anyway, so now let's do the math. And we're not talking about the math for years out, and we're not talking about crazy numbers here. We're going to say that the average one of these superchargers will do $300 a day. That would be, when we fill up, it's typically around $15. So that would mean it would need 20 cars going through per day. I'm sure there'll be some out in the middle of nowhere on certain days that won't do 20 a day. And I'm sure that there will be some that will do 200 a day. So 20 a day times 300, times $15, $300 a day. If we multiply that times 365 days a year, it comes to something over $100,000. Well, let's round it off because that just makes it easier. If each one of these 100,000 chargers does $100,000 a year in business, that would be $10 billion in volume, in total revenues. Elon has said that he wants to make 30% on these transactions. So that would give him about $3 billion in profit from all of that activity. Of course, once you put in solar and mega chargers, and then you amortize the solar and the mega chargers, maybe you're making 100% of the profit. But let's go with the 30% just for fun. Now that would give $3 billion a year next year in terms of net profits from these activities. Now there's be some amortization and whatnot from the installations. There's some rent that has to be paid, but I'm going to still go with this number as kind of a bare minimum that the stations themselves, they'll have $3 billion in total profits by next year, by the end of next year. So if you divide that by the number of shares outstanding, then you would be down to $3 a share that the company would be making next year, by the end of next year. If you put a 30 times multiple on that, you're talking about $90 a share. So the company right now should be valued somewhere under $90 a share just for the charging stations. That assumes it's only $300 per individual stall. And that also assumes that that's all the revenue that comes in from the activity. But of course, neither one of those things are probably true. So let's talk about some of the other revenues that are going to be coming in. Already, Tesla is experimenting with food. That could be minor amounts of food that would be sold. It could be up to restaurants, which they're experimenting with. Entertainment, that entertainment has been everything from a swimming pool or a little wading pool, all the way to a movie theater of a kind, a sort of movie theater. Lounges, places where people can hang out and maybe play video games and whatnot. These are all being tried. And guess what? There's bunches of other opportunities and ways that they can generate revenue while people are waiting for their car to charge, or just by virtue of having stopped along the way to charge, and this is their time to rest and relax before they go on with the trip. So obviously you could go further. You could go up to car washes. That would be an obvious one. You could add complete mini marts, which would be an obvious one. And you could go all the way up. Some of them already are associated with existing gift shops, these massive gift shops along the road. Tesla could own those. They could lease out the space for people to do that. They could enter into partnerships where they're part of the deal. There's a bunch of different ways they could do that, but I can't imagine that they're going to have 50,000 of these locations around the world, or 100,000 someday locations around the world, and they're not going to have multiple other ways to generate revenue from those locations. Now, one of the easiest ones is they can do advertising. They can advertise their own products. So there's a lot of other products like the roofs and other robotaxis and other things that are coming that could be advertised in these stations. That'd be one way to do it, doing their own ads. But they could also have other people advertising, as we've all seen in regular petrol stations today. These have these ads running. They could not only be the ads running, but they could be billboard type ads, park bench type ads, stanchions, all kinds of ads that can be placed around in order to charge people for the advertising space. So then beyond that, so those are some of the ways that they could earn additional money. So I'm saying that the $100 a share just for the charging stations is peanuts compared to the reality of what's going to be happening over the next several years. Now then, what other benefits are there? So one of the benefits we've talked about for a long time on this station, and other people have mentioned this as well, is that the folks that are going to come in that don't own Teslas, because that's going to happen. It's already happening in Europe. I'm sure it'll happen in China. It's starting to happen in the United States as part of this deal that Tesla has made with the U.S. government. And Elon had said he was going to open up anyway. As that happens, we've talked about people using the Tesla app in order to locate the station, and then when they get there, in order to pay for the goods. Well, there is a little confusion about this deal that has been put together where there has to be just one app that works for everybody and one way to pay so that it's convenient for everybody. I don't know if that holds up. I don't know if that's really the way it's going to be. It seems to me that would be the worst possible situation you could ask for. I think everybody having their own app would be way smarter, and different ways to pay would be way smarter, but the government's involved. What are we going to do? So if it is Tesla's app, of course, that means that people are now going to have a Tesla app on their phone. They're going to be using the Tesla app from time to time, and that means there's opportunities for Tesla to have people in their ecosystem, like the Apple ecosystem, which means they might be inclined to buy other Tesla products and services other than just the electrification of their automobile in a charging station. Now, one of the benefits, everybody's talked about this too, is, when you come to a charging station and you're not in a Tesla, here's all these Teslas and all these happy Tesla owners. So that's a benefit. Then the fact that the Tesla product works so much better than the other products do, their frequency of being working, other Electrify America and other of these stations have a terrible reputation for not working, for only having one or two actual stanchions in individual stations so that they could be too busy, all kinds of issues. So there's a benefit there to the Tesla brand. But one of the ones, this is the one that I'm sure you've thought of if you own a Tesla, maybe even if you've noticed it when you've gone near a Tesla charging station. When you are several blocks away from a Tesla Supercharger, you start to think that you have now gone to a different planet that was Elon Musk's planet, because all of a sudden, even blocks away, half the cars on the street are Teslas. It's really hilarious. If you've done this, you know what I'm talking about. Not just right at the station, blocks away, it's half the cars are Teslas. And you're like, what in the world is going on here? Is this the Tesla party? So this creates, again, a mental image that Tesla is taking over. And that's just one more way that you start to infect the brain of those who have not already come across to the Tesla side. So these are a bunch of the ways that these charging stations are going to be incredibly important going forward to the Tesla brand, to the Tesla profit. And again, the argument can be easily made, and nobody's talking about it. You can look back at some of my videos from before where I talk about that this should be spun off. This entire charging network should be spun off as a separate company because it isn't being given any value, and yet it is probably worth $100 a share right now. I'm sitting here at Los Angeles International Airport and realized I made an error in today's video. So the correct information should be that the company will make about $3 billion in profit on the basics of the charging stations, not counting any of the additional opportunities that are there, just the charging, and that's based on a very conservative estimate of how many cars per day and how much money each car would spend. If you divide that 3 billion by the outstanding shares, which are a little over 3 billion shares, but we'll round that off, it's about $1 per share on a 30 times earnings on a PE of 30. That would make just the charging station portion of Tesla worth about $30 a share right now. Well, if you've liked this content, if this is important content to you, please like and subscribe and all that. And we are now starting our Patreon journey. If you'd like to be a part of it, join Patreon. And you will get advances on some, like this video will be up about 12 hours before the public will see it on YouTube. So that's another advantage. But mostly it's going to be about the fun we're going to have on Patreon, looking at the future and what the future is going to look like in a Tesla or an Elon Musk economy. It's been great talking to you today.
Click the link below to get your paperback, Kindle, or audiobook now.